Hello and welcome to the Rotoworld player news fantasy baseball Q&A. I'm seeing right up in the corner that it's not what it says, so we're gonna throw that up there instead. So yeah, the Rotoworld player news fantasy baseball Q&A. I'm Eric Samulski. He's James Schiano. We are here to talk to you all about everything fantasy baseball, everything baseball. Maybe we will let James not have to talk about the Mets today. Just for positive mental health purposes. I think that might be good, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very fun weekend. Nice summer in the city weekend. Luckily, the Mets didn't play any games this weekend. It's weird to have a full weekend off in the middle of a season, but it was still nice to get a little break.
Yeah. Listen, it was good that they had the full weekend off. They just said, "Hey, Pittsburgh, don't even bother. We're okay.
Fine, all good.
We don't need to play these games, and we'll see how it goes from here." We will talk about the Mets a little bit. There's a question in here I already see about some Mets, so we will get there. But I guess we're getting a lot of questions recently about rookies in general and rookie performance, and so Dad's going to start us off. And he says, outside of the 2-homer game, Jack Caglione has been mostly very underwhelming. Do we foresee him getting sent back down? Are we hoping for him to pick it up like Cam Smith and Nick Kurtz have done? And I think you answered the question for yourself there, Dad. We have seen rookies struggle and then right the ship and come back up. I mean, right now, we've got a 43% hard hit rate for Caglione, about 89 mile an hour average exit velocity. So not great, but not terrible. But he has, he has 20 strikeouts to 4 walks in 23 games. It's not egregious. His swinging strike rate is 13.6%. Not great, but not egregious. I think he is adjusting. And I don't see any reason right now why the Royals would send him down. I mean, they were getting nothing from the outfield position as it was, and they're trying to compete for a playoff spot. I don't think you need to send him down so John Rave can play more often.
Yeah, I do think though at the same time it depends on the league you're playing in. If you're in a 10-team league, I understand not holding on to Caglione right now. He's not doing any of the things we wanted him to do. While he's still, like you said, hitting the ball hard consistently. There's not really any other facet of his game right now that's proving worthy in any way. And there was a moment I covered his game on Friday night for us here at Rotoworld, and the Royals really had Tanner Scott on the ropes in the middle of a 5-game losing streak in a game they really would have liked to have, and to beat the Dodgers, the opening game of the series at home. It's like, all right, nice. Like now we can actually maybe win the series against this great team. They load the bases in the 9th inning after a Salvador Perez blooper that Michael Garcia didn't. It looked like it could have been caught, so he didn't wind up scoring on it. So it wound up being bases loaded, 1 out for Caglione. And Scott hangs a slider, first pitch of the at-bat. Right at the top, right at the leathers, just sitting on the tee. Caglione swings like he's swinging to try and hit the ball 900 feet, completely tops it, hits into a double play, and is just kind of staring afterwards, like this blank 1,000-mile stare. And you can kind of tell everything is like crashing down on him. Where, again, I agree with you that he's not going to be sent down. But if you're in a relatively shallow league, he's someone I would be fine dropping, especially because it's so easy to forget that he was drafted less than a year ago.
Right.
I know Nick Kurtz was the same, but Nick Kurtz was a significantly better college hitter than Jack Caglione was, and he was a full-time hitter. Where Jack Caglione, this is the first time he's ever even hitting full-time. Like he was still pitching 14 months ago. It's a big adjustment, and you compare them, Dad, to Cam Smith in this question. Do you want to wait 2 months like it took Cam Smith to actually turn a corner and manage the contact of power? Like, I don't know if we get what we want from Caglione this year, truthfully.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Royals are going to keep him up. That doesn't mean you have to keep him on your team, but just understand that, like, I think it is likely that he does begin to turn it around.
Totally.
You just don't know if that's going to be in July or in August. And depending on your league type, if you can't wait, then don't wait. I think there's a lesson that a lot of people have to learn the hard way in fantasy sports in general, not just baseball, that like what you paid for somebody on waivers it's sunk cost. It's gone. You may have spent a lot of money on Caglione, and so you're like, I don't really want to cut him. He was a big waiver wire pickup for me. But if you don't have the bench space to just leave him on your bench and he is not helping your team, you can't say, well, I spent all that money on him on waivers, because you could then hold him for 3 weeks and torpedo the rest of your season. Again, I'm not saying he's torpedoing your season, but right now, whatever leagues I added him in, he's been on my bench. And until he will remain there until I can't comfortably keep him on my bench anymore. And then I'm going to have hard decisions.
And it's
I
also,
don't have those right now.
You can't be mad at yourself either for spending a ton of money on Jack Caglianone and Fab. Process-wise, like, that's what you do. You look for lightning in a bottle. This is a guy that had 6 homers in 12 games at AAA. He was hitting the ball 115, 120 miles an hour with regularity. He wasn't striking out. He was taking walks. Like, in terms of everything that was happening, like, it was a fine decision. I want to ask you now follow-up on this. Because of a similar situation, Roman Anthony is still not gotten going. And he's shown at times more, at times less than Caglianone as to what's going to happen. I think he's a much greater chance for demotion than Caglianone is. But at the same time, the Boston Red Sox probably don't demote your 3-hitter. You might trade your 3-hitter, but you're not demoting your 3-hitter. So we're in the same.
They'll trade a 2-hitter. They won't trade a 3-hitter, though.
Of course. Where are you on Roman Anthony? Where's the confidence level with him? Similar to Caglianone.
I'm more confident in Roman Anthony than I am in Caglianone, because the plate discipline has been much better. Roman Anthony, 17 strikeouts, but 10 walks in 18 games. He has a near 15% walk rate. So even though the batting average is down, he has a 324 OBP. So it's pretty clear that he's seeing the ball well, and I think that that's important. Also, the average exit velocity for Roman Anthony right now is 93.5 miles an hour. We just said Caglianone was near 89. So Roman Anthony is seeing the ball better. He has a 15% barrel rate, 50% hard hit rate, 93 plus mile per hour average exit velocity. So the batted ball, 6.6% swinging strike rate at the major league level. 82% overall contact rate, nearly a 90% zone contact rate for Roman Anthony at the big league level. For me, like, Roman Anthony is about to go on a Nick Kurtz, run here very soon. Like, he is not making back. His chase rate right now is 18%. Everything that Roman Anthony is doing is exactly what you want to see. He's not chasing. He's walking a lot. He's hitting the ball really hard. He's not swinging and missing. So I just think it's just an adjustment period. And I think it's only a matter of time before he really kind of puts together like a really strong run. Also, his defense has been really strong so far. These are all very minor sample sizes, but what we're saying is there any reason that the team would be concerned? He's doing everything the team would want him to be doing right now. And so I don't see any reason Roman Anthony goes down. And if somebody's worried about Roman Anthony in your league, I would try to get him if you could, because I think a breakout or a strong stretch is coming real soon.
Yeah. And
maybe if he gets these Reds pitchers this week, who really knows? Even though Nick Martinez almost threw a no-hitter, so who knows?
He just almost threw a no-hitter in his last start.
5x5 league hits instead of average. Basebone, we kind of know his league settings at this point in time. Zach McKinstry or Brooks Lee. I am taking Brooks Lee. He's been playing really, really well of late. Like, I was surprised. Brooks Lee was a really highly regarded prospect, something we need to consider. Like, he was a top 50 prospect, but it was all like, oh, well, he's a better real life player than he is fantasy player. But he's got 8 home runs on the season. He has 4 home runs in June. The quality of contact has gone up a lot. He's hitting 348 in 24 games in June. I'm riding that wave on a prospect of more pedigree than Brooks Lee, who's on a similar offense. Like, Minnesota's offense has been really good of late. They might not be as good of a team as Detroit, but like, the offense isn't that much worse when they're clicking, and the quality of contact's been really good.
I think also at the same time, if you just want a well-rounded player, sure, Brooks Lee. If you want speed, I think McKinstry, he's already stolen 10 bases this year. No, 250 plate appearances. I think he's the guy. If you're desperately looking for speed, go for McKinstry. But you're probably getting more of everything from Brooks Lee moving forward.
Yeah, agree on that. Points league question for James. It's a dynasty points league. Nice. Weekly dynasty points league. 1 catcher, and Dylan has both Tyler Stevenson and Austin Wells. So I guess the question is, would you drop one of those for what he refers to as a meh 2-step? And if you would drop one of those, like a meh 2-step like Patrick Corbin, or a useful arm like Eric Lauer, Jansen Junk. I don't know why we're calling Jansen Junk a useful arm, but that's okay. Would you drop one of those two catchers for pitchers of that caliber? And if so, which one?
I think that we have to start thinking deeply about Austin Wells, especially now that Ben Rice has started to play catcher again. In the Yankees' 3-game series over the weekend against the Athletics, Ben Rice played catcher twice. Those were both their games against right-handed pitchers. Austin Wells only started against the lefty JP Sears. If Austin Wells winds up in something like a 50-50 timeshare at catcher, I think JC Escar is even still on this roster with Ben Rice. It's not a disservice to Austin Wells. He's had some great moments, also some very cold moments over the last 2 seasons. He's now becoming one of those, expected stats kings, like we'll turn it around guys. But Ben Rice is clearly, to me, a better hitter than Austin Wells. And Austin Wells has never offered a ton defensively either. So if you can get a similar amount of production from Ben Rice behind the plate and then much more production from Ben Rice at the plate, he feels like he's going to become the starting catcher at some point. If that's something he could actually do. So with that being said, it's probably still too early to drop Austin Wells, especially in a league like this. But the one catcher dynasty leagues, you can't really trade a catcher unless it's like a 20-team league anyway. So I think it's not out of bounds to start considering dropping Austin Wells.
Yeah. Also consider that the Yankees have done a really good job with catching prospects in the past.
Amazing.
They have one, Jesus Rodriguez. I guess he plays all over the place, but in AAA right now, who's hitting pretty well and is the 12th ranked prospect in the Yankees system. Like, there's also no guarantee that Austin Wells just remains the Yankees starting catcher for the next 2-3 whatever years. So that's something to consider, since this is a dynasty league, that Austin Wells, if you trade Austin Wells, you're not like, oh no, what if he rebounds in 2026 7? Like, Austin Wells is almost 26, and if he doesn't show enough this year, like, he may not be their starting catcher in 2026, 2027, whatever.
He may not be their starting catcher anymore. Like, that's
right.
kind of where we're at with Austin Wells.
Yeah. Let's give a new person a question. This person wants to sell Eovaldi. Who should I go for? Any recommendations? It's hard to answer these questions because obviously we don't know what you're looking for. Let's frame it like this for us. If you were going to trade Eovaldi for a starting pitcher who you might be able to get a 1-for-1 deal done for, that you would actually probably rather have than Eovaldi for the back half of the year, does anybody jump to mind? And while you're thinking, I'll pull up the player rater and we'll talk about some guys who are like similar.
Yeah, I'm scrolling through the player rater right now. My mind immediately went to finding a bat, because usually if I feel like if I'm trying to sell high in a pitcher,
fair,
looking for a bat, but I'm scrolling.
Let's do that instead then.
I'm trying to scroll on both and think about it. Like, someone like, I don't know, like what position you want. I guess I'm assuming outfielder for some reason. I always think that's like one of the easiest spots to go out.
So let's talk about somebody we just talked about. Would you trade Eovaldi to get Cam Smith? Do you think this recent Cam Smith surge is something that we're going to see down the stretch?
I do think the Cam Smith surge is something we'll see. I've written up Cam Smith a few times this year, waiver wire columns, different places where it's just like he was making enough contact, swing decisions were good enough that I felt like eventually like there was just going to be a moment of click. And I think some of the moment of click came from how well he's played in the outfield, which is kind of amazing. I think that's been something that's gotten him some momentum. He seemed uncomfortable there at first, and he's still not making the best swing decisions in the world. He's still not making the best contact. He's now just begun to pull his fly balls more regularly over the last month, still in a small sample, but he was always hitting the ball hard. And seeing how alive he came this weekend against the Cubs, I think that was a cool moment for a player that had, for lack of a better term, a little bit of pizzazz. I still don't know if I'm trading a Valdi for him, though. I still think that you're covering that value a little bit. Maybe someone that started hot and now has gotten cold, but you wonder if they get hot again, like Torkelson. Someone like Ramos, who's had a great season, but it's less.
Would you trade over the last 14 days? So it's, there's been a recent hot streak, but Spencer Steer is 6th on the Fangraphs player rater. We saw him have a 3-homer game on Friday. We know that he battled the shoulder injury in the offseason, and so a lot of the early struggles were like, oh, he's not healthy. Do you take this weekend's strong performance to say, like, maybe Spencer Steer is starting to get healthy, and would you trade Eovaldi for Steer after this weekend?
I don't think I could trade Evaldi for Steer. Maybe Steer and Cam Smith, and you add something on the back end of that, and then you
Right.
kind of feel like you got the two middle guys in the deal, and you give a throw in afterwards. But I I don't know. Sometimes I see everything that Steer's done this season, but I never think about how hot that stadium's getting right now, and how if he went on a power surge wouldn't really be necessarily the biggest surprise in the world. But I still think Evaldi covers him a bit, especially you can't really ignore everything that's happened this year. Because I know if Evaldi's on the mound, he's quite good. It's just the questions of how consistent the health the rest of the season will be.
Sure. So some interesting names out there. If you're in the chat and you want to let us know specifically what you're looking for, that might be able to help us answer that question a little bit. Baseball wants us to rank Jack Flaherty, Ryan Nelson, Sandy Alcantara, and Jose Soriano in 5x5. How do you see those guys stacking up for you?
I was ready to jump in on Alcantara the last couple of weeks and another bad start. And you kind of look at the hot stretch, and it was really against a lot of bad teams. Soriano also was really hot, had the horrible blow up in the middle. Flaherty looks terrible. Have you seen anything from Flaherty, pitch mech wise, that you think is one can be better, or two is at least a reason for how bad he's been?
Well, for me, Jack Flaherty is always a big question mark for me, because I think that he relies so much on those secondaries. The fastball is not like a really dominant pitch. And so he really needs the curveball in particular. And, he's throwing the slider a lot too, to get those whiffs here. And so I just think that's the type of pitcher that's inconsistent, right? When the breaking balls are getting swings and misses, he's fine. When the breaking balls aren't, he's not. The last start against the A's, I'm looking right now, 11 whiffs on the curve. So sure, quality start with 7 strikeouts, fine. The start against Tampa, 2 whiffs on the curve, 1 whiff on the slider, 8 runs on 6 hits and 2+ innings. I think he might be the top guy in this group for me, only because
still consistency.
They're all kind of streamers. They're all guys in a 12-team league where I don't feel the need to start them every single time out. I really liked Jose Soriano coming into the year. He has been on a good stretch of late, and so I am intrigued by him, and he might be number 2 for me, but he is also super inconsistent because command for him comes and goes. And the splitter has not developed like I thought it was going to. He's relied on, the off speed, the curve a lot more. So I think all these guys are play the matchups.
And Ryan Nelson, weirdly, has actually been the most consistent of this group, but the one we're still waiting the most on whenever the blow up happens, because it's 60% fastball. It's a great fastball, but it's just at some point he's going to face a good offense. It's going to be a hot day, and he's going to give up 3 home runs in a game the next month. It's almost guaranteed. And that 1.0 whip is going to go up to where it should belongs about by 1.17. But these are all in that same boat, like you said. These are all guys I'd rank between 40 and 60 in terms of a starting pitcher ranking. So whoever plays the best guys next, I guess Flaherty is the top. I don't like him that much either.
Yeah. What about Emmett Sheehan here? Fantasy Sports wants to know, should he drop any of Nick Lodolo, Yuri Perez, Jacob Lopez, or Will Warren for Emmett Sheehan in a redraft 10-teamer? The 10 team is tough because we know for sure Emmett Sheehan is starting in the minors this week. We don't know if his next start is going to be in the majors. We also know that Glasnow is on the road back. Ohtani is slowly lengthening out. They expect Blake Snell to come back at some point. They have all of these guys like Kasparius and Robleski who can piggyback. Sheehan is coming off of an injury. I don't know that they're just going to say hey, 6 innings every time out. You're going to go. So he is risky in his own right. I kind of think the only one I would even entertain it for here is Jacob Lopez, because I think that Jacob Lopez is on a Ryan Yarbrough type run where it's earned, but it's earned by a lot of weak contact and location. And he's not somebody with an overpowering fastball, and he pitches in a really bad home park. And so if you get a few starts where the command isn't pristine, you could have some really bad outings. And so if you were looking for upside, I could see Sheehan over him, but I couldn't allow myself to drop any of those 3 guys for Emmett Sheehan right now in a 10 team.
There's also a chance that it just doesn't happen for Yuri Perez this season. Like there's
For
an
sure.
ample chance that the stuff looks very different after he's come back from the year layoff from Tommy John surgery. Very different moving profile. Basically, every single pitch he has, it's just probably shaking off that roster, maybe working on some things. It's I at the same time, while I do have doubt of what the workload Sheehan gives over the next few weeks, I don't doubt at all that he does work his way into this rotation at some point. He's simply been too good. Unless there's something else that happens, he is ahead of Glass now. He is ahead of Snell, and he is ahead of Otani getting to 5 innings. At some point, he's going to come back to this team. Might only be in 4 or 5 inning samples though at a time, because that's how the Dodgers are handling this stuff. There's also a chance that we get to August and Sheehan's pitching 4 or 5 innings really well at a time. Dustin May is still struggling 4 or 5 innings at a time.
Yeah.
These guys actually come back. Dustin May might be a reliever for the playoff run for the Dodgers. Clayton Kershaw might not be pitching every fifth day. When he pitches every fifth day, he's only going 4 innings, and like May follows him. Like they're going to do weird things. They're looking more for innings at this point in the season than effectiveness, as weird as that may be, because I think they just coast the regular season because they know exactly where they're going to wind up and know exactly where they want to go by the end of this whole thing. Sheehan might just be the next version of Kasparius, where he comes up and he might be too good even in 10-team leagues, and it might be too easy for him to get, maybe too hard for him to get wins if he starts, too easy to get wins if he piggybacks, but they seem to like him more in the starter role. He seems too good to ignore, but from this list of droppables, I probably keep Jacob Lopez for one more week rather than get Emmett Sheehan. Because 10-team league, you're probably not pushed up against the wall to get a guy whose next start is guaranteed in the minor leagues.
Yeah, and remember, like, everything you just said about Yuri Perez is true of Emmett Sheehan. I know he looked really good in that first performance and looked good in AAA, but he is also coming off Tommy John surgery and a long layoff, and so there's no.
He looks good,
right? But he looks good, but then the next start might not look good, and the next start will look good, and the next start won't. So there's that same inconsistency as well, or something to think about.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take this one from Uncle Ted right now because we talked about Jacob Lopez. His teammate is Jack Perkins. Uncle Ted wants to know, do y'all like Jack Perkins? I will say, I don't think Jack Perkins has made 2 appearances so far. Both of them have been 3 innings out of the bullpen. I don't think that they are definitely going to add him to the rotation. They clearly want to get rid of Luis Severino. And so maybe like after the trade deadline, they can get Jack Perkins into the rotation. Look, high 90s fastball, and it is a really flat fastball, 1.5 height adjusted VAA. So that means that's the type of fastball that succeeds really well at the top of the zone. He doesn't really throw it in the top of the zone. He actually throws it low in the zone a lot. So I don't love that, but I do like the makings of the fastball, and it gets good swinging strikes so far. And then he's got a cutter, primarily to lefties, and he's got a sweeper. And so the mix works enough. I'm a little worried that there's nothing like slow to lefties, but we haven't gotten there yet, right? He's not making starts.
Yeah, he's oddly only thrown. It's just over 40 pitches against lefties this season, those 2 appearances. And it's mostly been sweepers, which is just not really a recipe I like. That's a dangerous game, especially playing in such a pitcher's ballpark. I don't exactly think I'd be in a rush just seeing this 3-pitch repertoire is led by a sweeper to be like, yes, when Jack Perkins in the rotation, no doubt this guy's going to be it.
Yeah. Question earlier, Otis the Dumpling.
Nice.
Now I'm hungry. But he wants to know, would you trade Drew Rasmussen for either Teoscar Hernandez or Mike Trout in an OBP league?
Teoscar, yes.
Yeah.
Trout, I think, but definitely Teoscar. I think that every single great appearance you get from Rasmussen feels like it's just one step closer to the guillotine, because I just don't know how this continues to happen. I don't know if it was his most recent start. He may have made another one since then, but he was pulled after 67 fantastic pitches in 5 innings. It was Wednesday against that same Royals team who we just kind of lambasted before. But the Rays are being so careful with him, and rightfully so, because it is such an injury riddled past for Drew Rasmussen, and injury riddled present almost could happen not that long ago the last time. So I'm happy to trade Rasmussen almost any spot I can, especially if you get a high end hitter like Teoscar.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. Dad is relevant to our conversation. Wants to know, timeline for Blake Snell continues to be largely unknown. Well, we did get an update over the weekend. On Saturday, he threw 36 pitches Full arsenal is what we were told, hit 94 miles an hour on the fastball. And they said the next time out, he's supposed to face hitters. So like a live BP. If that live BP goes well, they might do like an up down where, he faces hitters and then sits and then faces more hitters, right? It simulates a game and allows him to simulate the process of stopping and starting and seeing how his arm responds to that. So let's say if all goes well for Snell, we're like mid-July rehab assignment and then August return to the Dodgers.
Yeah.
But also remember that the Dodgers right now want him for the playoffs. They're still sitting pretty, and so there's no need to rush him on this rehab assignment. So do I think we'll see Snell for the Dodgers? I do. I think it kind of comes like mid-August and toward the end as they build him back up. And so if you're in a league with an IL spot, you're holding him. If you're in a league without an IL spot, you probably dropped him a long time ago when there was no inclination of when he would be coming back. So yeah, I kind of think that's where we're at with him.
Yeah, we just know that the Dodgers want him to get to 6 innings before we get to the middle of September. So that can be someone that they rely on at the top of their rotation. That's why they signed him to make a playoff run. So I do think you're getting him back, but I think middle of August is a good estimation. And it's probably still 75, 80 pitches until the first week of September.
Yeah. Similarly, TM wants to know, how do you rank these IL stashes? Grayson Rodriguez, Shane McClanahan, Spencer Arrighetti, Yu Darvish, and Tyler Mahle. I will say I just posted 2 updates on these guys today on the Rotoworld Player news site, so make sure you check that out. McClanahan had a really good bullpen, had a really good throwing session. He is doing a, quote, full intensity bullpen this week, which would then proceed to a rehab assignment if all goes well. So maybe you're looking at like a mid-July rehab assignment for McClanahan. At this point with McClanahan, I'm hoping we get a Jacob deGrom situation from last year where he can make 3, maybe 4 starts at the end of the season. And we could say, hey, McClanahan looks healthy. And maybe I draft him in 2026 knowing that. Yu Darvish threw a simulated game, 51 pitch simulated game against single A hitters, and then threw a bullpen this weekend. He is going to throw another longer simulated game this week, and then maybe we'll need a short rehab assignment. So Yu Darvish is going to be the soonest back. He could be back in late July, mid to late July. And I think Arrighetti is kind of on track for late July. And Grayson Rodriguez for me is the one where if he doesn't pitch again this year, that would seem also logical. I have no idea where Grayson Rodriguez is at. And Tyler Mahle, I was looking it up too.
No information.
There's no clear. He could be coming back soon, but there's no, there's no clear answer for that at all.
Yeah, I think from this list, Arrighetti actually might be my favorite, kind of by far, because I know he is throwing rehab bullpen sessions. So it seems like he will be on a rehab assignment, possibly as soon as this week. And once he's back, definitely a full ramp up because he's been out for so long with that freak thumb injury. But he has the least threatening injury from this list. It was just the bone that had to heal. With the rest of these guys, there's arms. McClanahan was meeting with the nerve specialist a month ago. You never want to see your pitchers meeting with nerve specialists. And we also just don't know. I trust Yu Darvish is good when he comes back, but if these guys were coming in at full health this season, him and Darvish and Arrighetti were a toss-up, and you probably leaned Arrighetti with some more strikeout upside, which is weird to say about Yu Darvish, but at this point with his age, I think Arrighetti for me is definitely my favorite on this list.
I think Arrighetti is probably the favorite on the list too. Grayson Rodriguez, we had an update from the 27th, which is Saturday, that he's mixing his pitches. So he's throwing bullpens and he's starting to throw some breaking balls. It's going to be he's going to have to go to live batting practice. Then he's going to have to go to a rehab assignment. The Orioles are going to be sellers at the deadline. They're not going to rush Grayson Rodriguez back. They want to make sure he's healthy for next year. I think Grayson Rodriguez is in the same boat as McClanahan, where you're talking about 3 to 4 starts at the end of the year. McClanahan, the Rays are going to be careful with, though, because they want him to pitch in the playoffs if they get there. And so I think they're going to build him up, but not rush him. So those guys are all really tough. I kind of agree with you that Arrighetti is my favorite on this list. And then Darvish, I think, is the next closest. But they're all, none of them are immediate or like really close to coming back.
Yeah, it's also a good lesson about IL stashes. It's just never really going. It's never really going. It's never that. You should never really rely on these guys as much as we'd like to, considering they're injured.
Agreed. I hate to do this to you.
It's fine.
I had to.
Happy to.
Dad wants to know, with Griffin Canning's Achilles injury, do we foresee spot starts or a higher chance of a call up for Jonah Tong or Nolan McLean? What is your read on that?
I think we're guaranteed to see one of them in the majors this year at some point. I don't know if that's guaranteed to be in like a full-fledged starting role. We have a lot of history with David Stearns and with the Brewers and bringing these top pitching prospects up as you get towards a playoff race, but as weapons rather than starters. I remember Brandon Woodruff, Corbin Burns, Freddie Peralta. That's how all of them broke in with the Brewers once upon a time. And I do think that the Mets intend to be careful with this group. They not that they rushed Christian Scott last year, but he was the exciting pitching prospect last season, and he blew a gasket almost immediately trying to gas up and throw major league guys. And while both of Tong and McLean have taken big steps so far this season, and both of them I think are definite major league starting pitchers in terms of where they'll be in their careers. McLean still is very sweeper reliant. He has a cutter as well that's good. The fastball's fine, not great. I don't know how consistent he'd be against left-handed hitters in the major leagues right now. Where Tong is the freak, he's the guy that's kind of like rising up. But even though his stats are so good, and a lot of these, database statistical models for minor leaguers put him on par with guys like Mizraski and Burns, he's not that caliber pitching prospect. He's smaller, he has less pedigree. He has a crazy fastball and a curveball, and the changeup's come a long way, but it's still someone who's 22 years old in Double A. And I don't know if he's the jump, especially because neither of their 40-man clocks begin this year. I think I misspoke a couple weeks ago thinking that Tong's 40-man clock started this December. I believe it's actually next December. So there's no rush for the Mets to be adding these guys to a 40-man roster crunch that they have as a team that's trying to make the playoffs despite how poorly they've played lately. So I'd consider stashing them depending on how deep a league was, but I don't think that these are guys that are guaranteed to come up and be impact starting pitchers this season by any stretch.
I do like let's say, just as you're given all your Mets expertise, 2026, your chips are in the table for which of these two guys? Tong.
I think that we've seen a lot of growth from Tong's changeup this year, which I think was the biggest deal for him. It's still not the highest, still not percentage of strikes. I want to see him as Double-A pitcher, but I think he's so willing to throw pitches out of the strike zone because hitters chase him so often. But still, that command will come more to roost when you get to higher levels. But he does a crazy thing with his fastball where it's kind of glass now, but for a much smaller frame, where he releases it like directly over his head. Like it is the highest slot any pitcher could ever possibly have. And that is crazy for that 12-6 curveball he has. And it's amazing he's gotten so much depth and variation on his changeup with that too. Where McLean is Matt Brash, but they're trying more to make him a starter because he has the sweeper that's outrageous. The fastball's fine, but he's added the cutter and the gyro slider off of that sweeper that helped him be effective and efficient at AAA. But the AAA strikeout numbers have trended down a little bit of late. So I still think he either needs to and he's throwing a sinker as well now. So he needs to just refine everything around that sweeper, which I still think is a lot of work to be done. But it's high end. These are two possible 55 grade pitching prospects. Yeah. Guys you hope are like 2-3s in rotation for a long time to come.
I trust you on all things Mets. Do you have any concern with Austin Riley or Lawrence Butler? My immediate reaction is no. I think these guys go through a little bit of cold spells. Like that's kind of who they are as players. I think we've seen that enough. I will say that concerned about Austin Riley, he's hitting 255 in June. That's not great, but it's not terrible. In June alone, he has 74 batted ball events, 92.6 mile an hour average exit velocity, 49% hard hit rate. He's hitting the ball well. Yes, he has a nearly 30% strikeout rate. This is Austin Riley. We don't love that, but he is a power first hitter who's hitting the ball hard and doesn't have a batting average that's sinking you in a month where we're saying, hey, are you concerned about what he's doing? So I'm not really concerned about that.
It seems like there's such a hot streak in Austin Riley. It's going to happen at some point. That
Right.
happened last year and got taken away by the broken wrist. And then he did get hit by a pitch on that same hand/wrist in spring training. Didn't miss any time, but you always wonder what these teeny tiny injuries for power hitters like that, if it knocks them a little bit off. Because now it looks like 2 years of Austin Riley where it's like, oh, definitely taking massive steps back. The player he was may not be the player he is, but then you add a little bit of that context. And it does feel like something is going to happen. But they're also, I mean, there's just been a malaise in that Braves team. That happens with baseball teams sometimes. Like they just seem kind of blah. And it's hard for, besides Ronald Acuna Jr., who will never be blah, but it just seems hard to get, when multiple players are all playing like 10 to 20% worse than we expect them. That kind of feels like a team-wide thing more than a player-centric thing.
Yeah, and I have more concern about Lawrence Butler, but I just have more concern about him as a player than Austin Riley. Like Lawrence Butler, I think, is a streaky hitter. I think he saw that last year. In June, like I do love that the walk rate in June is up to nearly 11%. The strikeout rate is also really high. Ground ball rate is shot through the roof. I think there's just some minor like approach things going on here where, maybe the swing decisions aren't great. But he's got, 17 runs scored, 3 homers, 4 steals. Like he is producing fantasy value even in the middle of a bad stretch. And I think he's just a streaky player who will have some ups and some downs. So, if you want somebody, if you're expecting an outfielder who's going to just rake all season, or we were expecting like the quote next step from Lawrence Butler. And I think what we got from Lawrence Butler last year might just be who Lawrence Butler is. He's a solid player who's going to have some ups and some downs. And, we just got to ride him.
He's good. He's another guy who's going to wind up on a hot streak at some point in the next 2 months, and you're going to wind up getting to the end of the year, be like, oh, Lawrence Butler, like 25 homers, 22 steals, 260 average. That's a good season from Lawrence Butler. It just feels a little bit worse than the hot streak, and it's just, like you said, the superstar of them didn't come, but also maybe that was foolish to expect.
Yes. Just a quick follow-up. Dad asked, do we pick Brooks Lee even with the possible return of Royce Lewis? Yes, because Brooks Lee would just move to second base.
Stay in the lineup, definitely.
Brooks Lee will stay in the lineup at second base. Willie Castro will go back to moving all over, and Willie Castro's really struggled the last 2 weeks anyway. So yeah, I'm not worried about Brooks Lee. Points league, starting pitcher, relief pitcher hybrids. James, how do you rank Brandon Walter, Luis L. Ortiz, Ryan Nelson, Eric Lauer, Jansen, Junk?
You defamed my guy Jansen Junk before. She's flashed a little bit this year. I think from this list, the conversation.
He's fine, but like
he's
the
silly.
question,
Goofy.
Was asked about like a meh starting pitcher like like Corbin Burns or a like I think it was like reliable starter like Jansen Junk. It's like he's flashed. I don't think that I'm putting him in like the tier of like a reliable starting pitcher yet.
No chance. I think from this list, Ryan Nelson seems certainly the most sustainable and consistent from this list. While I do like Brandon Walter a lot in terms of flashing deep pitch mix as a funky lefty, like Brandon Walter's been awesome this season. So I think those two are my favorite two, followed by Luis Ortiz, who has elevated his Luis Ortiz-ness a bit this year while still being Luis Ortiz at the end of the day and just being weird every single start. And then Lauer and Junk. I mean, Junk kind of wants to be the best version of Lauer. Lauer also sometimes is a full start, sometimes he's not. I think Lauer probably is last to me for role, but I think I would go Nelson, Walter, Ortiz, Junk, Lauer.
And Bowden Francis is set to come back soon, and he hasn't been great, but like they might just slot him right back into the rotation. So who knows? But I trust you on the points league stuff, so I'm going to leave it there for you. Mm-hmm. Dad asks, as Taj Bradley's ERA gets closer to 5, do we feel like Joe Boyle could push the issue for a call-up? I've been feeling that for a while. The Rays did something super interesting yesterday where they had Joe Boyle work behind an opener, and they haven't done that before. And I don't know if that had something to do with the pitcher who was working as an opener and they wanted that guy to start the game for a couple innings or whatever, or that was something they're thinking about doing with Boyle at the major league level when he comes up. And so they wanted to see if he could do it at the minor league level. I don't know, but it caught my attention because it was not how they've used Joe Boyle previously. And anytime in the minor leagues you see teams change how they're using somebody, it signals that they're thinking about something, they're looking at something, a change in position, a change in usage, whatever. I think Joe Boyle's time should be soon. I think another thing to keep in mind is this is the Rays. And even when the Rays are contending, that doesn't mean they won't trade at the deadline, because the Rays are always thinking 2, 3, 4 years ahead. Zach Littell is a pending free agent. So even if the Rays don't want to demote Taj Bradley, in a couple weeks, they could trade Zach Littell, get something for a guy who they're not going to re-sign in the offseason, and then just promote Joe Boyle into Littell's spot in the rotation. So I kind of feel like my gut is telling me that one way or another by the trade deadline, Joe Boyle is in this rotation, but that's just trying to read tea leaves. That's not based on like hearing something specific.
It is also incredible. This Rays team, only 6 different players have started for them a game this season, being Pepio, Littell, Taj Bradley, Drew Rasmussen, and Shane Baz, and the one time Joe Boyle pitched in April. It's been an overwhelming consistency from their starting pitchers. And after like a half-decade stretch where the Rays were kind of like breaking the mold and trying new things, like experimenting with the opener, now the Rays have leaned, I don't know if they leaned into, but it's just what their personnel allows, where they are the consistent starting pitching team. It's like ironic how those like trends in baseball move around, but this has been the most consistent pitching staff in baseball, and the Rays have been able to lean on that, wait for this offense to get hot, and that's how they're so good. But I do agree with you. Joe Boyle will be pitching on this team before long. This Rays team are the best version of themselves with Joe Boyle in this rotation, and he might start game 2 of a playoff series. Like, he's been that good. He has that kind of potential. He's taken seemingly that kind of step forward after being traded for Jeffrey Springs, where this looks like it's kind of a runaway train at this point with Joe Boyle.
Yeah, really good trade for Tampa again. Robert just pointed out Lawrence Butler is also 24.
100%.
So the next step for him could be 2 years away, and that's entirely true. That
easily.
Yeah. We could see the next step for Lawrence Butler, not this year, not next year, but the year after.
Even the year after.
We have a question on TJ Friedl. Is there a sign that this is the peak? So I guess just like, what are your thoughts on TJ Friedl? He continues to lead off for the Reds against both righties and lefties. We need to point that out. He's led off against the last 2 lefties as well. In June, in 25 games in June, he's hitting .237 with 4 home runs, 14 runs scored, 11 RBIs, no steals, which is interesting because that's kind of why you want TJ Friedl. Strikeout rate always going to be good. Walk rate always going to be good. Those are just things with TJ Friedl, but the stolen bases not happening at all in June is very surprising to me.
Totally. This also is TJ Friedl now. Like, we know what TJ Friedl is playing games in Cincinnati. Like, he's going to hit. He has been hitting when he's been healthy, besides last year, 2023 and 2025 now, at or near the top of the order. He's peppering the ball all over the field. When he pulls the fly balls, there's a chance to go out because of what that ballpark plays like. Like, he's just a fun fantasy player, especially one that can excel in the exact situation that he's in. Like, if TJ Friedl was an outfielder on the Royals, his stats might look like Jonathan India's. But now, besides for last year when he had the wrist, the thumb, the hamstring, he got hurt every single direction, and it kind of ruined his entire season. Looking at the last 2 full seasons by TJ Friedl, we're like, this guy's just a good fantasy baseball player. And it's not the profile that we often seek out or the one that we often shoot for, but it's someone that continues to be productive based on tons of contact and someone who gets the most out of it by, again, pulling nearly the highest rate of fly balls of any hitter in the league, which is not what we think about with TJ Friedl, but he clearly has demonstrated that skill in his major league career, and something that I'd be shocked if it didn't continue.
Yeah, there's a good chance that TJ Friedl finishes this year 15-15, 15-20 with a good batting average and a lot of runs scored at the top of a surging lineup, and that's really useful in most formats.
Oh, totally.
Dad followed up with this, so I'm just curious: Joe Boyle or Andrew Painter for this year?
I lean Boyle, but I'm going to check really quick what Andrew Painter's usage has looked like in his last few starts. How many pitches?
I lean Boyle as well.
Yeah.
I think the runway for Boyle is going to be much cleaner once he's up. I think the Phillies are going to manage Painter's innings a little bit more when he's up because of how much he means to them as a prospect. And I don't think that the Rays are going to do that. And Painter has been fine, but not great in AAA, actually.
Yeah, he's gotten into the 5th inning in 4 straight starts now, which is that's a big hurdle for someone like him to climb after the layoff. But it seems to me that Painter, similar to the conversation we were just having about Tong and McLean, comes up as more of a weapon geared at the postseason than a traditional starter, because Philly's rotation is deep. They have options there. And while Painter might be better than Mick Abel at this current moment, definitely better than Taijuan Walker, who's gotten bounced, like the 4 of Wheeler, Sanchez, Luzardo, and Suarez are not going anywhere. Like those guys are horses. Those are stalwarts. And again, he might be better than Abel, but Abel might be better off to give them 5-6 innings at the beginning of the game where I can see the Phillies going to Andrew Painter the way they went to Zach Eflin in the playoffs 2 years ago, where it's like, you're the mop-up guy. You come in when we need some help, but you also, if you're hot, you stay in the game. Like if we get a 3-inning, 4-strikeout, 1-run performance from Andrew Painter in the NLDS, we're like pumping our fists about that. I think that's where he might be best served in this Phillies roster moving forward, because their sights are set past the regular season. I think they're assuming a playoff spot based on how they're playing and how good this team is.
Yeah, and I would agree with that as well. Painter, 4.24 ERA, 10% walk rate in 9 AAA starts. He is a good pitcher, but he's not like crushing in AAA so much.
Like Boyle.
Joe Boyle is objectively pitching better in AAA. I think we'll have a longer leash in the big leagues, and so this year, and so I would go with Boyle. Yeah. Uncle Ted says Dominic Canzone is on fire.
Yep.
He is. Dominic Canzone looked good in AAA too. I will say Dominic Canzone's average exit velocity right now in the majors is like 93 miles an hour. It was like 89 miles an hour in AAA. So I think he's on fire. I don't think that what we saw in AAA from him this year signals a massive breakout like this. Looking at the swing rates, like he was slightly more passive, more selective, I guess you could say, in AAA this year. Contact rate went up, in both zone contact and contact overall. The swinging strike rate went down. So there was an approach shift that led to more contact. And Canzone is a guy who has barreled, the ball double-digit percentages every time he's had a shot. He does hit the ball hard. So being more selective and making more contact will naturally lead to more hard contact from Canzone. So I took some flyers in deeper formats. I certainly don't mind it. I'm not expecting we're seeing like a massive breakout, but I think in deeper formats, he could wind up being a very valuable outfielder.
At the same time, it is a profile to dream on in terms of what a late breakout could look like, where you're getting lots of contact with good bat speed, with always pretty good power metrics. Like last week, he hit a 450-foot home run. Like you see a guy like Canzone who's not striking out, hit a 450-foot home run. Like your eyes kind of bug out of your head. I do have a bit of a soft spot for Canzone too. We crossed paths at Ohio State. I saw him play a lot of baseball. Had like seen him like in person before. Like he's a nice dude, and he has a chance. The Seattle lineup is begging for any hitter to emerge ever. For years, they've been giving Canzone chances. He's never been able to do it for a consistent period of time, but there is something here in this profile where you could squint and be like, yeah, as a 27-year-old with what he's doing under the hood, Dominic Canzone could be a late bloomer.
And not a problem grabbing shares in a lot of your leagues if you need some, just to see. Shrekspierre wants to know Augustin Ramirez or Shea Langoliers. He has Ramirez, but not sure about activating Langoliers. So where do you go here in a one-catcher league? And if you do activate Langoliers, has Augustin Ramirez hit well enough that you would want to keep him around in addition to having Langoliers?
I almost think yes. Like Augustin Ramirez, it's streaky because it's not the best swing decision. It's a very low OBP. But depending on your league context, you might not care about low OBP if it comes with a decently high batting average, especially relative to the other catchers in the league, like Augustin Ramirez has done. In terms of physical tools from the catching position, no one hits the ball harder than Augustin Ramirez, and that's consistently. He crushes baseballs, and the Marlins are playing him. The Marlins are streaking. Marlins are the hottest team in baseball right now. The Marlins have won 7 baseball games in a row. They are 1 game behind the Atlanta Braves in the National League East, which if you had told me that on July 1st, the Marlins would be 1 game behind the Atlanta Braves, I would be like, wow, Marlins are having an incredible season. It's really just an okay, bad season, but if you're going to get a 30-homer pace with a 250 batting average from Augustin Ramirez, which is what he's done as a rookie, And that's happening while he's mostly DHing because he's a disaster behind the plate defensively.
He is terrible behind the plate.
Horrific. I write up the Steal Streams article every single week, and every single week I'm like, you find the one game that Augustine Ramirez catches, the opposing team is going to attempt to steal every single time he's back there. But at the same time, he is DHing a lot, and he's eligible different places. You're getting a higher share of playing time from Augustine Ramirez than you're getting from most other catchers in baseball. I was very aggressive on him when he came up early season. I dropped like a $200 bid on him in TGFBI because I was like, if he's going to DH and hit like this, like,
yeah,
I'm getting 160 game pace out of Augustine Ramirez like that. No catcher's giving you that, and it is funny too in this Would You Rather because Augustine Ramirez is like the worst park to hit in baseball. Shane Langoliers has the second or third best, but at the same time, I'm infatuated with Ramirez from a fantasy standpoint this season.
I would try to keep both if you can. I think that Ramirez has hit well enough to be a backup at another position or fill your UT spot or anything like that.
He crushed the ball.
Perry wants to know for today only, it's Jacob Lopez at Tampa Bay or it's Ryan Nelson versus the Giants. This is a tough one for me because my gut says Ryan Nelson, because I think that Ryan Nelson is probably a better pitcher long-term. The Giants offense, even though they got Devers, has actually really been struggling since getting Devers. And Devers had a really bad weekend, and that's not to say that he's going to have a bad weekend. So it's tough, but I just think at this point, given the heater that Jacob Lopez is on, I just can't bench him. I'm worried that it might be a bad start, but I can't put him on the bench for Ryan Nelson today.
Especially at Tampa Bay, feels worrisome based on how well that team has hit. And I think this is the Rays' only home series with the All-Star break in between for like 4 weeks because of how weird their schedule lines up and how many the share of home games they play. Just weird, like Major League Baseball quirk with the Rays having outdoor games in Florida now going through the heat of the summer. I'm so much more confident in Nelson, but I also am short-term confident in Lopez, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly kind of how I'm approaching this at all. I saw, it was Shrekespeare, I think, asked this. What are we doing with Tyler Soderstrom and Tommy Edman? We need to activate Harper soon, and Steer is also out there. Listen, Soderstrom, like, he has been fine, but the OPS has been pretty bad since the start of May. And that's why you roster Tyler Soderstrom. You want power. And so, like, it's great that the batting average hasn't tanked, but just 5 home runs since May 1st, 2 home runs in June, hitting 220. At this point, like, I mean, Harper, if you activate Harper, for sure you could drop Soderstrom. I would rather have Spencer Steer over Soderstrom right now.
Yeah, Spencer Soderstrom is not, like you said, there's no power. It feels like they kind of prioritize Nick Kurtz over Soderstrom because moving to the outfield seems like it's kind of knocked him off his block a little bit. And it's a hard thing to do, change positions on the fly like that. He's been horrible out there as well. So it's like it doesn't feel that cool, especially if you're in a 12-team league. Like I've dropped Soderstrom in some 12-team leagues over the last few weeks. It just doesn't feel like the re-click is going to happen anytime soon. And it's like the OPS is going to keep dropping. There's no real signs of Tyler Soderstrom getting on the same power surge he had early in the season.
Yeah, and I'm keeping Tommy Edman.
Same.
His early season performance was always a fluke. He's going to play every day in LA. I'm
second
holding on
base
to him.
stinks.
Yes. Points league question. Head-to-head points league. Kyle Stowers or Jurickson Profar. How do you slot them? And would you play Stowers every day right now?
I mean, similar conversation where Soderstrom and Stowers, where we do have to kind of get rid of what happened in April at some point in our minds because it's never really indicative of what's going to happen the rest of the year. And it was always going to be difficult for Stowers with how much swing and misses in his game, but with that amazing power to maintain what he was doing. He's still going to play every day, though. He's a lefty batter on a bad team. Like, there's no way that he actually leaves this lineup more often than not. Where Profar, you're just points league Profar is always a little bit of a thing because it's just going to be so much contact. The Braves have committed to hitting him at top of their order. Like, he's going to come back and walk into the 2 spot in between Ronald Acuna and Matt Olson. It's hard to ignore that part of this as well because Jurickson Profar is going to be annoying and hit singles. and score runs. And like that's something that in a points league where Kyle Stowers continues to strike out and take points away from you will hurt at the end of the day. And especially because while he's going to play most days, like Kyle Stowers has begun to sit against some lefties, and he will probably continue to sit against lefties. It's probably something that's always going to be part of Kyle Stowers' profile. So as disgusting as it sounds, imagine telling someone this on April 15th, but you're probably a slight lean to Profar and head-to-head points like that.
That's wild to me. The follow-up from Dad is Stowers or Adele. I assume this is Adele, no?
Yeah, it's got to be Adele. What else do we want from Joe Adele right now? Like, he's doing everything.
Right. Joe Adele's been great. Good for you, Joe Adele. Last question, not last question. We're gonna go through a few quickly. Where did this question go? Oh, do you think Will Adames will turn it around this year? He is currently turning it around. Willy Adames, since June, this is an arbitrary day, but his June has been Willy Adames's best month. Since June 10th, that's the last 18 games. Adames is hitting 274 with a 360 on-base percentage, a 484 slug, 4 home runs, 1 stolen base, 13% walk rate, 25% strikeout rate. Like, Willy Adames has been... You held Willy Adames this long. He's actually starting to play pretty well. You're just holding on to Willy Adames at this point. In fact, if I go back even more, like since June... Yeah, I mean, his last... Most of the first week of June was a struggle for him continuously from before. Since then, he has gotten a lot better. Matt Chapman is going to come back. Devers is in this lineup now, which I think takes a lot of the pressure off Adames, because right now everybody was talking about Adames struggling, and now they're focused on Devers and what he's doing to that lineup. So yeah, if you held Willy Adames this long, you got to keep holding on.
Yeah, now you just see it through. But at the same time, there's also a question of in a 10-team league, think about some shortstops who might be on the waiver wire. Like if Dansby Swanson's on your waiver wire, I still might like Dansby Swanson better the rest of the season than Willy Adames. I think that's an interesting would you rather.
Maybe.
Like, yeah, it's close. That's close. Like, that's kind of where you're at in a 10-team league. Like, there's a good chance both of those guys were dropped, and now you have to kind of deal with that. You probably did miss out on a lot of shortstops you could have picked up by just holding Adames through, but now that you're here, you might as well just keep going with it.
Yeah. I'm going to go through some quick hitters because we got to get out of here soon. How would you rank Ernie Clement, Tyler Freeman, or Spencer Steer?
Freeman at home. If not Freeman at home, Steer, then Clement still.
Yeah. Freeman is at home all week this week. And then he gets like at Cincinnati and at Boston, I think, which are also good offensive parks. So like Freeman for right now, I kind of love what we're doing. I might put Steer over him and then Freeman and Clement. I like both. Uncle Ted says Fott is throwing cutters last 2 starts, 7 Ks each. Yeah, he's done that before. And Fott had a really great stretch early in the year. He was using the cutter and the curve to lefties, and then he stopped, and those pitches struggled. So sure, it's great. I'd love to see him continuously do that. Fantasy Sports says I dropped Bubba Chandler, couldn't hold anymore. I get it. But if Mitch Keller gets traded, like is being reported, at that point you kind of feel like it has to be Bubba Chandler. That might be 3 more weeks. We don't know. I think Bubba Chandler is coming up. I couldn't tell you when.
It also feels like the second Bubba Chandler comes up, it might re-click instantly.
I think he's just being. I think it's they toyed around with him too much. It's screwing with his head. Like I'm not. We talked about this on previous shows. I'm not. We won't belabor the point there.
No.
Dad wants to know if the password, who's a Red Sox outfield prospect who's now in a top 100 prospect, is coming up in September. I don't think so.
Probably not.
The Red Sox barely had room for Roman Anthony. They have Yoshida coming back pretty soon. I don't think he's coming. Garcia's coming up in September. He might come up for another team if the Red Sox swing big on a trade and trade Garcia to another team. But I don't think he comes up for the Red Sox in September.
No.
Alec Bohm or Max Muncy, James?
Muncy.
5x5 league.
Muncy, okay. Since he put glasses on, he's been one of the top 5 best third basemen in baseball. And Alec Bohm, which is like it is stupid, but that's kind of part of the analysis where it's like maybe actually astigmatism was just hurting him, or maybe at least it's giving him the confidence to hit better. Where Bohm is exactly who Bohm's always been. He's good contact, great run production, but it's hard to take a near zero power from a corner spot like that.
Yeah. Otto Lopez or Gunnar Henderson. I know Otto Lopez has been good. I can't suggest Otto Lopez over Gunnar Henderson. Yeah. Evan Carter or Ozzie Albies. I assume this is just like a bench spot or an outfield spot.
I'm going Carter.
I think I'm also going Carter as well. I like the changes he's made. He looks pretty good right now. So Carter. Is the Helio Ramos power surge over?
No, maybe briefly. I mean, it's always going to be so waxing and waning power surges in that ballpark. But Helio Ramos, I think, has kind of cemented himself this year as a hitter, as a ball player, major league ball player. And I do think you're still getting 25 homers by the end of the season, almost undoubtedly.
Yeah. And follow up to the Evan Carter one was Evan Carter versus Joe Adell.
That's imagine asking somebody that 3 months ago. Ozzie Albies versus Joe Adell. But you can't really ignore Joe Adell anymore. Joe Adell looks incredible. There's really no stopping him.
I think if you're going for upside, I agree with you. I'm going for
if you already have another second baseman, there's no reason to also hold Ozzie Albies at this point. It doesn't seem like it's even close to turning around.
Yeah. Augustin Ramirez in a 16-team OBP league where he also has William Contreras. Would you pick up Ramirez and then just try to trade Contreras? I'm okay with that, honestly, because we know Ramirez is playing through a finger injury. And so I'm all right.
But OBP league is the one spot where you lose tons of value on Augustin Ramirez because that OBP is struggling to even stay at 300, even though he has a 250 average and 800 OPS. So that's the one time I'd be a little more concerned about Augustin Ramirez, but you're getting more power than you're getting from William Contreras, which is incomprehensible also to think about if I told you that 3 months ago.
And William Contreras is still a name, so if you picked up Augustin Ramirez, you might be able to get a pretty good return for William Contreras that overall just makes your team better.
For sure.
Dad wants to know, can Chase DeLauder stay healthy enough to be a stash? That's anybody's question. I think he needs to stay healthy enough for 2 or 3 more weeks before he pushes the Guardians to kind of make that call. I will say CJ Kayfus, first-round pick of the Guardians, has been playing outfield as well, has been up in AAA basically all year, and also looks good. And so I don't think it's a lock that Chase DeLauder gets the call over CJ Kayfus if they're going for a similar player of that type.
Yeah.
Neither of those guys is on the 40-man roster, so either one would necessitate a 40-man roster move. They're both the same age. In fact, they are both born the same month in the same year. So you're not really getting any different like age thing as well. DeLauder is the higher upside guy, but he just hasn't played enough professional games. So it's hard to say. CJ Kayfus, also a lefty. They're both left-handed hitters. Kayfus has positional versatility because he can play first base as well. And CJ Kayfus is also hitting like 260 off of lefties alone in AAA. So the fact that he has shown that he can hit both righties and lefties is valuable. He doesn't have DeLauder's power profile, but I think he profiles as a better batting average hitter than Chase DeLauder does at the big league level. So just depends what Cleveland wants to do. That's going to do it for us here on the Rotoworld Player News Fantasy Baseball Q&A. James's article, his waiver wire article, will come out tomorrow. His steals article comes out on Wednesday. My starting pitcher pitch mix article comes out Wednesday, and my waiver wire article comes out Sunday. I have an article probably coming out this week on feel for pitchers. I talked to a bunch of pitchers. I talked to the AAA pitching coach for the Astros, talked to the pitching development coordinator for the Rangers, talked a lot about what is feel. How can we identify if a pitcher has feel? Can you teach feel? All that kind of stuff. So that should come out also sometime later this week. So keep an eye out for that. Follow us both on Twitter. I am at Samulski NYC. James is at James_Schiano. We are both around on Blue Sky as well. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, everybody who comes out in the grind of the summer when some people want to give up on their teams. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. We will see you next Monday at noon Eastern time on the Rotoworld Fantasy Baseball Player News Q&A.